telling my dad I felt excluded after his girlfriend didn't include me in dinner. It had been a strange couple of months for me. At 26, I did not think I would find myself back in my dad's house. Especially not while he was living with his girlfriend and her teenage daughter. But here I was, my lease had ended suddenly when my landlord decided to sell the building. I had little time to prepare, and I could not find a new place fast enough. Rent prices were climbing, and my budget was tight. So my dad had offered a place to stay. Just something temporary, he had said, until I found somewhere else. I accepted because I needed the help. And truthfully, I thought it would be fine. I was close to my dad. Growing up, he had been my constant after my parents split. We had our ups and downs, but he always tried. When he moved in with his girlfriend, I did not really know her well. She had a daughter who was 13, and they seemed like a little family unit. I was polite when we met, but we never spent much time together. Once I moved in, things were okay. Not great. Not terrible. Just okay. I tried to stay out of the way. I spent most of my time job hunting and apartment browsing online. I kept the guest room tidy, washed my dishes, and tried to make sure I was not stepping on anyone's toes. Still, there was an odd tension in the air, especially around his girlfriend. She was not rude, she was just cold. Her smiles felt stiff. Conversations were short. I figured she might not love the idea of her boyfriend's adult daughter living under the same roof, even for a little while. I could understand that, but it still made things awkward. Then one afternoon, my dad came into my room, looking cheerful. "Hey," he said, knocking on the doorframe. "What are you up to this evening?" "Just working on apartment stuff," I said, turning from my laptop. "Well," he rubbed the back of his neck, "Sophie and Lily are going out for dinner. I thought it might be nice for you to go with them. Spend a little time together. Get out of the house." I blinked. "Oh, sure. That sounds nice." "Yeah," he smiled. "Might help break the ice a little." Even though he was not coming, I felt like I had been genuinely invited. He had suggested it, and he sounded hopeful. I thought, just maybe, this was a step toward easing some of the weirdness. I even spent a bit of time picking an outfit, fancy, but something that looked decent. I wanted to make a good impression. When it was time to leave, I met Sophie and her daughter Lily near the front door. Sophie gave me a brief nod. Lily did not say much but looked at me with curious eyes. We got in the car and drove toward the restaurant. No one talked much during the drive, but I thought that was okay. Maybe the conversation would pick up once we sat down. We pulled up to a cozy little Italian restaurant. It was the kind of place, with warm lights, white tablecloths, and soft music playing through open windows. I had been here before with friends. I had even come once or twice with Sophie, back when we were still trying to get to know each other. As we stepped inside, Sophie walked straight to the host stand. "Table for two," she said. I stood right behind her, puzzled. The host looked up, ready to lead the way, when Sophie turned slightly toward me and said with a tight smile, "Oh, I thought you were just tagging along. This is a little celebration just for her." My heart dropped. Lily looked down at the floor, shifting awkwardly. I blinked, unsure if I had heard right. Sophie looked back at the host, nodding toward the table being prepared. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. For a moment, I thought maybe she was joking, but the expression on her face told me otherwise. I swallowed hard. "Oh, okay." Without another word, I turned and walked out the door. Outside, the sky was turning soft shades of pink and orange. I stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds, trying not to cry. People walked by, chatting and laughing. Everything felt normal out there, except me. I felt small, like an afterthought. I did not want to go back home just yet, so I walked down the street and found a little place that sold rice bowls and spring rolls. I ordered some takeout, sat on a bench while I waited, and tried to hold it together. I could not understand what had just happened. My dad had told me to go. He had said it would be good for us all. And now I was sitting here, eating alone, trying to pretend that it did not hurt. When my food was ready, I called a ride and headed back. As I walked through the front door, my dad called from the living room, "Hey, how was dinner?" I stood there for a second, holding the brown paper bag in my hands. I looked at him and said quietly, "Apparently I was not invited after all." His smile faded. "What?" I did not feel like explaining everything. I just walked past him and went to my room. Later that night, I heard Sophie talking to him in the kitchen. Her voice was low, but sharp. She completely overreacted. I had no idea she thought she was coming with us. She made me look bad in front of Lily. I heard my dad trying to respond, but he sounded unsure, caught in the middle. When they returned from dinner, Lily had looked at me funny. Not angry, more like confused. Like I had done something wrong. I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what I was supposed to have done differently. Was it wrong to think I had been invited? Was it my fault for not clarifying? Maybe Sophie thought I was going somewhere else. The place next to the restaurant, I used to go there often with my friends. She had even taken me there once or twice herself. Maybe she assumed I would head that way instead. But still, she never asked, she never checked. And when I stood there, unsure and embarrassed, she did not stop me. I was not upset about missing a meal. It was not about food. It was about being treated like I did not matter. And that really hurt. The next morning, the house was quiet. I stayed in my room longer than usual, not really wanting to bump into anyone. I had barely slept. My thoughts had been spinning all night, playing the moment over and over again. Sophie, saying table for two. The puzzled look from the host, my own shocked face reflected in the glass door as I turned to leave. I was not angry in the explosive kind of way. I was just hollow, hurt. The kind of hurt that comes when you feel invisible. Eventually, I stepped out into the kitchen. My dad was there, sipping his coffee at the counter. He looked up as I walked in. "Hey," he said carefully, as if trying to judge my mood. "Morning," I said, keeping my voice even. I poured myself a glass of water. "I talked to Sophie last night," he began. I nodded, not sure what to say. "She said she thought you were just tagging along, that maybe you were going to meet your friends next door. The spot you like." I glanced at him. "Did she really think that?" He shrugged. "That is what she said. But you were the one who told me to go with them." "I know," he said quietly, "and I am sorry. I really thought it would be a nice evening. I did not expect that." I sat down at the table. It was not just about the dinner. It was the way she said it. I was never part of the plan. I did not belong. My dad sighed. She said it was a celebration for Lily. Something about her getting good grades or finishing a school project. I would have understood that, I said, but she could have said something earlier. Before we got all the way there. He looked down into his coffee. "I know." For a moment, there was silence between us. "I just do not want to feel like I am a burden in my own dad's house," I added softly. "You are not a burden," he said quickly. "You are my daughter. You needed help, and I wanted to help, but I do not think she feels the same way." He did not answer right away. I stared out the kitchen window. The yard outside was bright with sunlight, but it did not feel cheerful. It felt quiet, like everything was holding its breath. "I think she's just not sure how to connect with you," he finally said. "That would be easier if she talked to me like I mattered." He rubbed the back of his neck, like he did when he was nervous. "I will talk to her again. Maybe we can all sit down." I nodded, though I was not sure if that would help. The damage had already been done. Later that day, I overheard Sophie on the phone. She was talking to a friend, her voice carrying down the hallway even though the door was mostly shut. "I do not know what the big deal is," she said. "It was just a dinner." She took it way too personally. "Now everyone's acting like I did something cruel." There was a pause, then laughter. "Honestly, I think she's just too sensitive." I walked back into my room before I could hear more. Too sensitive. That stuck with me. My feelings were somehow a flaw. I should have just smiled and gone home and said nothing. I spent the rest of the day keeping to myself, scrolling through apartment listings, sending out rental applications, but everything felt gray and distant. That evening, Lily knocked gently on my door. I was surprised to see her standing there. "Hi," she said. "I wanted to say sorry about dinner." I blinked. "Oh, you do not have to." "No, I do," she said quickly. "I thought you were coming with us too." I was kind of excited, actually. I thought it would be nice. That surprised me. Lily usually did not say much around me. But then Mom said it was just the two of us, and I did not know what to say. She continued, fiddling with the sleeve of her sweater. "I did not think it was fair." "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means a lot." She gave me a small smile, then looked down. "Mom was upset when we got home. She said you made her look bad, but I do not think that is true." I felt a lump form in my throat. This kid who had no reason to care about my feelings was showing more kindness than the adult in the house. "Do not worry about it," I said. You did nothing wrong. She nodded. Okay. I just wanted you to know. After she left, I sat on the edge of my bed, holding that little moment close. It did not fix everything, but it helped. Over the next few days, things stayed quiet. Sophie avoided me. My dad tried to be extra nice, but it felt forced. Lily was friendly when we crossed paths, offering small smiles and quick waves. She was the only one who seemed real. I started packing up little things, books, clothes I was not using, odds and ends. I knew I would not be staying much longer. Even if I did not have a new place yet, I needed to start preparing. I did not want to live in a house where my presence felt like a problem. But a part of me still ached for my dad to say more, to defend me, to stand up for me. Because I was his daughter, and I should not have felt like an outsider under his roof. The weekend came, but nothing really changed. Saturday morning started slow. I could hear the sounds of breakfast in the kitchen plates, clinking, a cupboard opening, Lily's soft voice asking for more juice. I stayed in bed a little longer than usual, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. I had always thought of my dad's house as a safe place. Even when he moved in with Sophie and her daughter, I believed it would still feel like home. But now, the walls felt thinner. The space smaller. I felt like I had to tiptoe through my own life. Eventually, I went into the kitchen. My dad gave me a nod and a half smile. Sophie did not say anything. Lily looked up from her plate and gave a small wave. I smiled back. I poured myself some coffee and stood near the sink, unsure if I should sit down or just head back to my room. My dad cleared his throat. Got anything planned today? I shrugged, looking at a few apartments online. He nodded. Good. Let me know if you want help moving when the time comes. That last part stung more than I expected. He meant, well, I knew. But it was another quiet reminder that I was not supposed to be here for long. Sophie stood up and carried her plate to the sink. Lily and I are heading to the mall later. She needs new shoes. That sounds nice, my dad said. Sophie glanced at me, then looked away. Just us. I did not respond. I did not even try. I finished my coffee and left the room. The truth was, I had already seen a couple of listings that might work. Small studios, nothing fancy, but affordable. I had been holding off, hoping the atmosphere in the house might warm up. Hoping that Sophie might make an effort. But now I realized I had been hoping for something that was never coming. That afternoon, while the house was quiet, my dad came to my room again. He knocked gently. Can we talk for a second? He asked. I nodded. He stepped inside, hands in his pockets. He looked tired. I talked to Sophie again, he said slowly. She feels like everything's tense. Like you are holding a grudge. I raised my eyebrows. I am not holding a grudge. I just stopped pretending everything is okay. He sat down in the desk chair. She said she really did not mean to hurt your feelings. That it was all a misunderstanding. Dad, I said. Even if she did not mean to hurt me, she still did. And instead of apologizing, she blamed me for being upset. He sighed. I know, and I told her that. But she also feels like this house is supposed to be peaceful. She worries about Lily. She wants things calm. I want that too, I said quietly. But calm does not mean ignoring problems. It does not mean making me feel invisible. He looked at me then, really looked. I could see the lines around his eyes, deeper now than before. You are my daughter. You matter. I know this is not easy. I wanted it to work better. Me, too, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. I just think, he continued, maybe we are all trying, but not in the same ways. I thought about that. I do not think Sophie ever wanted me here, I said. She was surprised by it, he admitted, but she agreed to help. Helping and welcoming are not the same, I replied. He nodded slowly. That is fair. The conversation ended there. There was not much more to say. The next day I got an email confirming an apartment viewing, for later in the week. I decided not to wait anymore. I needed to move on. A few days later, Sophie left a note on the counter. It was not long, just a few lines written in her neat handwriting. I hope things get better between us someday. I truly did not mean to hurt your feelings. I know this is hard for everyone. Sophie, I read it twice. It was the closest thing to an apology I had received. It was not perfect, but it was something. Still, I did not feel better. Not really. That night, Lily knocked on my door again. Can I come in? She asked. Sure. She sat on the floor, legs crossed. I told Mom I did not think what happened was fair, she said. She just said grown-ups see things differently. I smiled sadly. Maybe they do, or maybe some grown-ups forget what it feels like to be left out. She nodded. It made me feel weird, too. I thought you were coming. Thank you for saying that, I told her. I like when you are here, she added softly. I blinked, caught off guard. You do, she said. You are quiet, but you are nice. You always talk to me like I am a real person. That touched me more than I expected. I reached out and gently squeezed her hand. You are a real person, I said. And a kind one. She gave a small smile, then stood up. Do not tell Mom I said all that. Secret's safe, I said with a wink. When she left, I sat in silence again. For all the awkwardness, for all the quiet tension in that house, it was Lily's words that stayed with me. She saw me, and maybe that was enough to help me keep going. The following Thursday, I went to see the studio apartment. It was small, just a single open space with a tiny kitchen tucked in the corner, a sliding door that led to a narrow balcony, and cream-colored walls that made the place feel a bit bigger than it really was. But it was clean, quiet, and within my budget. The neighborhood was nice, too, with a little grocery store on the corner and a park just a few blocks away. As I stood there in the center of the room, I could already picture where my bookshelf would go, where I would set up my little desk, where I would hang the fairy lights I had packed away in a box weeks ago. It was not fancy, but it felt like something I had not felt in a while. Mine. I signed the lease that same afternoon. When I got home, I found my dad sitting in the living room. I told him the news. Wow, he said, smiling. That was fast. I think I just knew it was time, I said, and it felt right. He nodded. Want help moving? Yeah, I said. That would be nice. There was a pause. I am proud of you. You know, he said, for handling all of this, for not giving up. My throat tightened a little. Thanks, Dad. Over the weekend, we packed my things together. Sophie mostly stayed out of the way, though she passed me once in the hallway and gave a quiet good luck. It was not warm, exactly. But it was not cold either. Lily helped me carry a few boxes to the car. Are you going to come visit sometimes? She asked. Sure, I said, if that is okay with you. She grinned. Yes, you still owe me a movie night, remember? I chuckled. You are right, I do. We hugged. It was quick, but meaningful. That evening, when I closed the door to my dad's house for the last time, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I was leaving behind a place that had become uncomfortable, but I was also moving forward, toward something new, toward something better. The first night in my new place was quiet. I sat on the floor, eating noodles from a takeout container, watching the sky darken outside my window. There were no awkward silences, no side glances, just me and the sound of the city. I thought about everything that had happened, about being excluded from dinner, about the way Sophie made me feel like an extra piece that did not fit, about the hurt that came not from being left out of a meal, but from being left out of a family moment I was told I was welcome to. I thought about my dad, stuck in the middle. I knew he loved me. I never doubted that. But sometimes, love meant standing up when things were unfair. And sometimes, people did not know how to do that. I thought about Lily, her kind words, her honesty, her willingness to reach out even when the adults around her were still figuring things out. And I thought about myself, how easy it would have been to shut down, to lash out, but I had taken the harder road. I had spoken up. I had chosen peace, even when things were uncomfortable. I had moved forward, not because I was pushed out, but because I knew I deserved more. Days turned into weeks, and I slowly settled in. I bought a second-hand couch, hung up some art, and got into a rhythm. I visited my dad now and then. Sometimes we grabbed lunch. Other times we just talked on the phone. We both tried. That mattered. Sophie and I never became close. I stopped expecting that. But we learned how to be polite, how to share space when needed, and that was enough. Lily and I stayed in touch. She messaged me now and then, sending little updates or funny videos. We still planned to watch a movie together one weekend soon. I looked forward to that, and as time passed, the sting from that night at the restaurant faded. Not because it did not matter, but because I had learned something valuable. Sometimes, people will leave you out. Sometimes, they will make you feel small without even realizing it. But how you respond, that is what shapes you. I chose to speak gently. I chose to protect my peace. And I chose to move forward. That made all the difference.